I met an atheist who claimed that he never would believe in the existence of God. In his view, believers are supposed to be people of weak character who feel the need to find a crutch for their disabilities and laziness and, therefore, they attend church. I was agitated if, in debating religion, he could not persuade his opponent with his arguments. He despised believers in an almost hysterical way. Ringworm, however, a very good friend who believed in God. They agreed to discuss religion whenever they met. One day this man, probably in a rare moment of weakness, he accepted his friend's invitation to visit his church. To himself, he laughed at the idea of shouting in the middle of the Mass, pointing his finger and laughing to the believers from the pulpit. However, as we know, God works in mysterious ways. He went to church, stood behind the pews, and he stared at the people praying. Mass began and he gave everything a sarcastic look. Then the sermon began, which lasted about 15 minutes. From suddenly, in the middle of the sermon, tears rolled from his eyes. A stranger feeling of joy and happiness eliminated their animosity, a feeling that had wrapped around his whole body. After the Mass, the two friends left together. They were silent until the moment when each one would go his own way, when he asked his friend if they could go to church together again. They agreed to go again the next day. It is possible that some of you have guessed that I was that stubborn atheist. I felt nothing but contempt and hatred towards people of faith. But after that sermon in 1989, when the Father discussed how we should not judge others if we do not want to be judged, my life suddenly took a dramatic turn. I started attending church regularly and he thirsted for any information about God and Jesus Christ. I participated in meetings with young Christians in which we exchanged our experiences spiritual. I felt resurrected. Suddenly I felt the need to be in the company of believers. I needed to make up for the last 18 years. I was raised in an atheist family, which except that they baptized me, he made no attempt to guide my spiritual development. I remember being in 6th grade when a fellow was sent by the Communist Party to explain to us why God does not exist. I remember that I absorbed every word. In my case, I didn't need convincing. I believed everything he said. His arrogance, contempt and hatred for believers became mine. But now I had to make up for everyone those years. I found a priest and others who oriented in this new direction. I had many questions, which they answered. Later I realized a big mistake. I accepted everything without contemplation or reflection. I could say that they explained things to me in a way that was, accept without question, but it would be unfair to them. It was, in fact, my mistake. No, I reflected on his words, I didn't even think critically. It caused me to many complications later. In retrospect, I believe that age was a factor important to influence my behavior. I was too young to understand properly matters as serious and complicated as faith. I wanted to become a good Christian and God, I tried a lot. Still, as time went by I couldn't reconcile the contradictions found in the Bible, such as the divine nature of the prophet Jesus and the concept of inherited sin. The priests tried to answer my questions, but eventually his patience began to run out. I was told that these matters must be accepted in the faith, and these questions were a loss of time, serving only to distance me from God. Until that day I remember discuss with a spiritual leader, an event that restarted my tendencies self-destructive. Maybe it was wrong after all. He was young. How I became a Muslim, my path in the direction of Islam was not easy. You may think that once I was disappointed with the Christianity, I immediately accepted Islam as my belief. That would have been very simple, but all I knew about Islam at the time were things like the Muslims refer to God as Allah. read the Quran instead of the Bible, and worshipped someone named Muhammad. I also think I wasn't ready to accept Islam. So, I moved away from the community of church and claimed to be a Christian soloist. I discovered, however, that although not to miss the community of believers or church, God had Himself established so deeply in my heart that I could not let Him go. I didn't even try. Quite the opposite. I was happy I had God and hoped that He would be by my side. Later I started to get involved in a stupidity after another, living a life of luxury and lust. I didn't realize that that road would lead me away from God and take me to hell. A friend of mine says that you have to hit rock bottom to feel the ground beneath your feet. That's exactly what happened to me. I went very deep. Only I can imagine how Satan must have waited for me with open arms. But God didn't. He gave up on me and gave me another chance.